Reality, my truck rides like a car.
Mike's green, please.
Taking it on the road, it's got the big tires on it, it's jacked up.
Yeah.
And I told her, we're in 60.
Live on YouTube.
We might as well get what we want. So she's the safety lawyer, automobile company. She
Go ahead,
don't get
Trevor.
the Jeep.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the special meeting of the Village Council of Ruidoso this May 20th, 2021. It's 8 o'clock. If you'll join me for a moment of silence, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Excuse me. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Z symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. All right, thank you, everyone. I know everybody probably just left the meeting to get to this meeting, and it's like staging NASCAR pit stops around here with these meetings, so I appreciate everybody showing up. So, Mr. Santa, would you give us a roll call, please?
All right, good morning, everyone. Mayor Crawford.
Here.
Councilor Salas.
Here.
Councilor Lutterman.
Here.
Councilor Eby.
Here.
Councilor Cornelius.
Here.
Councilor Coughlin.
Here.
And Councilor Jackson. Here. Thank you, Mayor. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. It's good to hear your voice, Susan. Do you smell like stink bait? She's up there fishing in Texas, so. All right, first agenda item is discussion of possible action on request for a budget change in the amount of $100,000 for entertainment and grand prizes for the Billy the Kid Country Tours. And I guess that, is this going to be, I didn't see who was going to represent this one, Rodney Griego?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mayor, councilors. So I believe y'all are aware of the country tours, or the Billy the Kid Country Tours that we've been putting together. And so we approached lodger's tax to support the tours through funding for entertainment, awards, and the marketing of that tour package. And so we requested $100,000 for that, and was that funding was approved through lodger's tax. And so we're asking the governing body today to again for consideration of approval of those funds.
Okay, thank you, Rodney. Does the council real familiar with these tours?
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
And I think just for a little advertisement, like our English folks say, Tim, would you give us just a brief discussion on that, introduction into it?
Mayor, Council, what we're proposing is to create a tour for outdoor enthusiasts. And, the tour would be encompassing of off-roading with the HUVs, with the Jeeps, which they're now calling overlanding, motorcycles, and going on different tours like they used to do the bike runs, the motorcycle runs. And then we would have a hiking and equestrian. We've been working with Logan Flaherty to come up with Billy the Kid in each one of those type of activities that would be printed on the back of t-shirts and whatnot. It would be an electronic app that we would have that would help guide the tours. And, people would be able to do it at will at any given time that they want to come and do the actual tour. But there are 4 weekends that we're going to be promoting, and through the analytical software that we have, we've determined which were the 4 slowest weekends of the year that we're targeting of the summer season, and we'll be doing additional events. With this promotional package, they're also incorporating the Music Fest that we had in it before and planning different entertainment venues to happen during those given times as well. They're working with various business partners and anybody that wants to get involved from the community to create up either discounts or some type of way to help promote all the businesses within our area.
And you're looking at giving away some good prizes like a brand new Harley Davidson from Roswell Champion Harley Davidson, a Jeep, hopefully from Sierra Blanca, and so on and so forth.
Yes, and one of the things that we have done is, previously we had talked about or looked at those motorcycle rallies and the motorcycle runs, and they always had a question about the giveaways and whether they're legal. So between myself, Zach, and Ron, we contacted the Gaming Commission, and actually their staff advised us that we can do this as a sweepstakes and make it legal. So the online application is a way that you get the package and get registered, and you could purchase the T-shirt. That's what you're getting for the package. But to actually enter the sweepstakes, you don't have to do anything other than provide, your email address or contact information, and then you can enter the sweepstakes. But the people that do go out, the enthusiasts that do go out and do the various tours, every time that they do a tour and complete it, then they'll get entered into that sweepstakes.
And as usual, you suckers don't get to win. So just be a little bit too obvious.
She has a different last name.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. So
I'm looking forward to just the fact, well, my Polaris is in the shop right now, but as soon as it comes out, I'm looking forward to all these trails and the rides and stuff and going and doing it outside of everything. But I'm just glad to see the identification, because I only know of a few places but I know there's a lot more. So this is a great idea. I like it.
then would you like to proffer a motion?
No, I'll do it.
Only if he can enter.
Yeah.
If he could enter.
I can't, but my wife can.
Oh, I
okay?
see.
So, I'll move to approve a request for a budget change in the amount of $100,000 for entertainment and grand prizes for the Billy the Kid Country Tours.
Second. Discussion? I know we all had an opportunity to name this event or this tour, stuff like that, and I was going and hoping that Ruidoso Adventures would get enough votes, but obviously I failed on that. And the reason why I got on that, Rod, was that we're really trying to promote Ruidoso, and that's the reason why, or one reason, or a good reason, we got the Wingfield House, so it could become the museum. And as the mayor always said, we're always talking about Smokey the Bear, Billy the Kid, Lincoln, and all this. And I don't see any of the county hotels contributing to Ruidoso lodgers tax. Like La Quinta and Ruidoso Downs, unless they do. I don't think they do, right? Judy, is just Ruidoso. So that was the reason for Ruidoso Adventures as a title of this event stuff. So that's.
I didn't see that in the survey monkey.
That wasn't a choice. Everything.
Well,
it was under other. So I thought I put it in there, and Jasmine will print it or send it out that here's another opportunity, because all three of them were Billy the Kid, and I said, well, where's Ruidoso in this? So that's my take on it.
I noticed the same thing, and I know I have a donor to the Boys and Girls Club that every year sends us money and a diatribe, and I think you guys have gotten it too.
Yeah.
Regarding Billy the Kid. And how he's being put up on a platform and pedestal.
Wait, let me just tell you, you guys can do something about it, so.
Well, the name's already there, so that was the process.
Yeah, we've started advertisement and stuff there, so that's my take, but.
Yeah.
Mayor,
Call the question.
Council, we haven't finalized any of the marketing, so if you all do feel that we need my thoughts is on the front of the shirts that we would have Ruidoso brand on there. But, if you feel that we need to incorporate that in, I think we're open to that as well. And I do believe the way that you're explaining it, those suggestions that were offered weren't vetted through everybody. So maybe we need to go back and look at the ones that were offered on other and then do a resurvey.
When I selected other, I wasn't given a choice of putting something else in, so I don't know.
Well, may I propose that,
I agree with Michael.
I'm sorry, who's that?
It's Susan, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I agree with Rifle. We need to, this is for Ruidoso, and I know it's going to be around Lincoln County, but I think Rifle brings up a really good point. And, it's our lodger's tax from Ruidoso, and we want people to come into Ruidoso, so I tend to agree with him.
Rafa, once you add a
That
friendly
it needs to
amendment,
be more like Ruidoso Adventures.
that we could work on the name, but go ahead and approve the money.
Yeah, I'll offer a friendly amendment to change the name from Billy the Kid Country Tours to Ruidoso Adventure Tours.
I'm good with that. I'll accept that.
Okay, you'll accept that? Did we have a second while ago?
We did second that.
And you accept?
Great, thank you all. And I'm sorry, I thought when we put other or anything, the results would come back to us, and I haven't checked my email in a day or two, so.
Okay. So you don't want to listen to any other input? You like Ruidoso Adventure Tours?
Sounds good.
Adventure and Country were the two that I liked. I just didn't like the Billy the Kid,
Yeah,
the front.
that's,
Okay, roll call, please, Mr. Sena.
Counselor Coughlin,
Aye.
Counselor Jackson,
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius,
Aye.
Counselor Salas,
aye.
Counselor Letterman,
Aye.
Counselor Eby. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Good job, council. That's the way you do it. Item number 2, discussion and possible action on adoption of resolution 2021-22, a resolution amending ordinance 2014-06 Village of Ruidoso Personnel Policy, Chapter 4, Positions and Pay, pardon me, 4-1 Compensation Policy, 4-2 Pay, 4-3 Merit Increase and One-Time Merit Performance, Pay, 4-4 End of Probation Increases, 4-5 Cost of Living Adjustment, COLA, 4-10 Service Credit Pay, Exhibition A, Police Pay Plan, Exhibit B, Dispatcher Pay Plan, Exhibit C, Fire Pay Plan, Exhibit D, General Employee Pay Plan. And this one is postponed from May the 11th, 2021, regular council meeting. And to speak with this, we have Ms. Cheryl.
Mayor, if you don't mind, if I may start off. If I may start off, Mayor, I know that this is something that you've asked me to take a look at. This year is really making sure that we look at the compensation, make sure that there's fair and equitable processes in place and consistent across all departments so that we feel a sense of inclusiveness in the way that we're approaching compensation. So there's been a couple of committee members that from the council that have worked with me on this, and we've gone over it and presented this to them. So I just want to thank Councilor Jackson and Councilor Salas for their time and efforts and whatnot. Working on this part of it, I also asked the police department to really come in and assist me with it, and this goes back quite some time. So I got the 3 officers that worked on that are going to present and talk about some of the challenges in their department and the recommendations within their pay plan on how we can, recruit, retain, and ultimately have, career officers here at the Village of Ruidoso. So I know that Councilor Letterman has also been meeting on the dispatch, consolidated dispatch, and had made recommendations as well. So we've taken that input into consideration on this. So with that, Mayor, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Cheryl, and she could handle the resolution part of it, and then we'll have the officers talk about their strategies in the pay plan and their recommendations.
Okay, sounds great.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. So this resolution would just amend some of the verbiage in Chapter 4. Section 4-1 under the compensation policy, there's just a slight change in the second paragraph. We just want to be clear that we will review and make updates and have council approve those annually if needed during the budget process. Just one small change there. In section 4-2 pay, We would like to add in that village manager can approve wages above the entry level, but only up to midpoint. And then if a newly hired employee does not have all the qualifications needed at the time of hire, the employee may be hired below entry level. And then that entry level pay can be reduced by 4% until that employee gains that capacity. And the employee and village will establish an improvement plan in order for the employee to build the skills and competencies for that position.
So is that a max of just 4% or to reduce it by? Say you have somebody that just needs a semester to get their bachelor's or associates and say, oh, we'll give you 3% or,
Mayor, Councilor, yes, that would be a max of 4%.
okay.
So, oftentimes, and, we've actually worked on this and, as a test in several different departments, and where we brought somebody in and they just didn't meet all the qualifications. So we've outlined classes like project management class or the certified purchasing agent class.
Right.
And then once they complete that, then they're taken to
Okay.
the entry level. And, it's worked good as an incentive to, help, educate people and get them into those positions. And with the challenges that we have oftentimes in trying to find employees, especially in the broad fields that we have within the village, oftentimes it's hard to find people that are trained or have that previous experience. So this is just a good tool for us to make sure that we're filling positions.
And plus, it helps promote from within.
Yes.
Gives other people opportunity if they don't like the position they're in. Because I know some people take a job just to get in with the village, to start different places. And I believe the Internal Finance Committee has gone through this.
Yes, sir.
You know how I knew that? Because I'm on it, so it worked out good. So thank you, guys. What else did you have, Cheryl?
So E1, again, just an employee who's promoted shall be paid the hiring rate for the new class or a higher rate in the new pay range up to midpoint based on years of service and certifications. Down to section 4-3, we want to omit the merit increase and one-time merit and change that to a pay for performance plan. So section A, employees will be eligible to receive a performance increase annually based on achievements and measurable outcomes identified and documented in the employee's annual evaluation. Their education, certifications, and specialized training achieved by employees to help build capacity within departments can be identified by their director and will be taken into consideration for the employee's performance increase. And down to section I, if an employee receives disciplinary action within an evaluation period and the issue is not corrected by the next quarter, the employee would not be eligible for that performance increase.
And Mayor, on that, we're going to be issuing an admin reg on how all this policy is going to be administered. But for instance, it can't just be, I gave this employee a verbal counseling and so I'm not going to recommend. It's going to have to be something that's documented and substantial and substantiated as well to be able to take that from them or not award them with that performance evaluation. So, that's something that either Ron or myself will be presented with and signing off on, and then acknowledgement of the mayor as we look at those type of issues. So we don't want it to be negative. We want it to be a positive deal, but at the same time, management does need some type of way of making sure that employees are incentivized to do the right thing.
I like that, incentivized to do that.
Mayor, Council, I apologize, that was section I, and I skipped the add-ins for C, D, and H, so I'm going to go back. So section C, performance increases will be proposed by the director and approved by the village manager and/or deputy manager. And then D, once an employee has been identified as meeting and exceeding those performance criteria that has been established, increases will be awarded as the following. So employees that meet those performance criteria would receive a 4% increase. Supervisors and managers would receive a 3% increase, and directors would receive a 2% increase.
Cheryl, can I ask a question on that?
Yes, sir.
So it says identified as meeting and exceeding their performance criteria. So if they meet their performance criteria, are they eligible for a lesser percentage increase, or is it just 4% and that's it for regular employees?
If they meet, they would be eligible, yes, sir.
The full amount.
Are you questioning the exceeding?
Well, because this says meeting and exceeding
Yes.
their performance. So to me, that means if somebody meets and exceeds, they can get up to 4%, but if they only meet it, they might get a 2% instead of the 4%. Because if they don't exceed it, according to the way this is worded, they don't get anything.
Correct.
Mayor, Counselor, what I would suggest, I would replace "and" with "or."
Okay.
Thank you, Tim.
That's in D.
D.
I agree with that.
I would actually like to see, if they meet, they get a lesser amount. If they exceed, because we want our employees to go above and beyond, not just what is requested of them. So if they meet it, maybe they get a lesser amount. If they exceed it, then they can get 4%.
That's a good point.
Otherwise, meeting to me is just kind of like going through the motions and you're showing up to work every day and you're doing whatever. I don't know what their criteria is going to be, but it's just somebody that's trudging along rather than somebody who's really going above and beyond. So somebody who's coming in, I come in, I show up to work on time, I do my job, whatever. John comes in and he's just like there early and he's really hassling and getting stuff done, hustling and getting stuff done. I get a 4% and he gets a 4% for doing a lot more. He's getting kind of ripped on the deal.
That's a good point.
So can we add somewhere in there something to the event that at the discretion of the village manager, going on that percentage, like you're saying?
The only thing I have a problem with that is past history, I don't want to, I'd rather it be more than just one person's view.
Right.
Then it would look like targeting, and I think it also would put
Favoritism
the
or whatever.
manager in an
Mayor, Counselor, I really tried to stay away from that because I don't want to get into this favoritism stuff, just like you're talking about. And, if there is somebody exceptional, the way that I would, recommend that we handle that. And I really want to, and as Cheryl mentioned earlier, we're recommending that this come back to the council into an open discussion annually for transparency reasons. And so if there's somebody that's exceeding in that type of a situation, and we can also work that into the admin reg process, that we would recommend some type of percentage based upon excellence or something of that nature, and it'd be brought to council and actually acknowledge them in the meeting for their excellence or whatnot. But I just don't want to, I really want to try to keep this to where it's really goal-driven and accomplishment-driven and not based on somebody's opinion of, I like this guy, so I'm going to say he's excellent or whatnot. So if there's like an excellence, I think that needs to be recommended maybe to, by myself, the director, myself, to the mayor, and then put on the agenda to be recognized.
I can go with that. And we've been trying, we've had several attempts at doing this, recognizing excellence and, things from just having a great attitude, showing up for work every day, things of that nature, help cultivating a good work atmosphere, and we've missed it every time. And this at least has sustainability or whatever, but I could go with what the manager just depicted, that we have the standards that are put in there, and then if we have somebody that's really exhibiting excellence, that could be addressed.
So let me ask a two-part question. One is, who determines the performance criteria, and is that performance criteria by employee or by position?
Position.
It's created by the director or manager or supervisor. All the evaluations, it steps up, so any employee's direct supervisor creates the evaluation. The supervisor above him does a review on it, And so it involves those two levels. On this one, for the last section of the evaluation where the goals and objectives are set for the next year, that part is going to have to be signed off on by Ron or myself, depending which department it is. So it's going to be a combination of the supervisor, and the manager or deputy manager on that criteria.
But it's job description per position.
Yes.
It's
And
not by
then
individual.
within that, the individual shows exception and workability. For example, during COVID, we had other duties as assigned.
Right.
Some people were like, you bet, I'll help do whatever, you know. And other people is like, not my job, you know. And so it comes into that team atmosphere. How do we work together?
And some of it's going to be built on succession as well.
Yes.
So if we want to start building capacity in an individual to move up, you know, that this is going to be a tool to say, you know, we want X person to be a supervisor next year. Or we want to move them into that career path, so they're going to have to take this supervisory class or New Mexico Edge class or whatnot. You know, everybody will have that improvement plan built into their evaluation that would be signed off on by at least 3 people.
And so it's opportunity built into the system is what the intent is. And then it's up to the individual to exercise those options. And we've had that displayed already. Some individuals are more motivated. And so they go through the process and then the others don't. And so the reward is built in, that the village has the opportunities provided and they just need to take advantage of them. So can you work with this
Mayor?
now? Yes.
It's Susan. Hey, I like the way we're going with this, because to me, excellence is going above and beyond the call of duty. And I think it's very important for us to recognize those people that don't just meet the criteria of the job, but that are going above and beyond. So I like the way we're going.
Yeah, I would say that if it's basically all or nothing, that I would leave the word "and" in there, so they meet and exceed.
And or.
See, I disagree with that, Tim, because like, I deal with employees all the time, and I've got some that just, they do their job, and other people that they'll do everything that you want and more. And those people need to be rewarded more than those that just do their job. Those that put forth more effort should be rewarded higher than those that are just going through the motions.
Because you're paid to do the job you're hired to, and if you
Correct,
exceed
right.
that.
Correct.
Mayor, if I may, you know, when you start to look at the people that are just, you know, doing their job, when you look at the scales that we've presented in every department, those are the people that are just going to continue to move laterally at 1%. The people that are going above and accomplishing are the ones that are stepping up. And that's what this step plan is, the way that it's designed.
And the key is the review process that's been implemented, that's been working. From everything I've seen, are y'all seeing it in y'all's position? That, I mean, what we've tried to do to get in different departments, I see heads nodding, because before the way we had it was, it put too many reviews on the director. Now we've got it broken down in supervisors, managers, so on and so forth, that it's done on a consistent basis, because we used to wait till the end of the year. And, you know, if you sucked up real good, a week before or 2 months before, then you got a good for it.
Well, and the supervisor is the one that's working more closely with the employee and is better in position to evaluate.
And it's to the supervisor's benefit or manager to make sure their employee knows what's expected and work through that process on a daily basis. And then we can better handle it. But that's the key to all of this. So are you saying you want to keep identified as meeting and exceeding?
That's what it says. If it's going to be, you know, you either get for employees, I'm using them as an example, you either get nothing or you get 4%, then yes, they meet and exceed, which is the wording that's in there.
Mayor, and the intent is not to just be 4%. So, you know, if a supervisor comes in and says, you know, I want you to accomplish these 4 things, and I'm going to attach a percentage to each one of these things, you know, it's not going to be, you just go to New Mexico Edge class and we're going to give you 4%. You know, we're going to identify those goals, and, you know, in identifying that, it may be broken down, that 4% may be broken down into those objectives.
So they could get less than a 4%.
if they don't accomplish all four things, yes.
That's not the way this reads.
Yeah, should we say up to 4%?
It could say up to 4%.
Yeah, and so then, in that case, and that's what I'm getting at, Tim, so that's great, good, is, say, meeting or exceeding the performance has been established increases may be awarded, as follow, up to, you know, the percentage that's listed there. Then that works good, because yes, if you've got 4 goals and there's 1% attached to each one, and you only meet 3 of them, then you get 3%. But the way this is worded, it's all or nothing. And that's what I'm saying, is that allows that employee who really goes above and beyond to be financially rewarded for their extra efforts.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, Tim, I've worked under a system that, that Tim just identified. But basically it was as the individual department and supervisor defines 4 goals to be met, and then those are reviewed. I have 2 parts in the question. Then it depends on the percentage of those that are met in terms of the actual reward. But the other question I have is, as we set that up, are those reviewed quarterly with the employee and the supervisor? So that they don't come as a big aha moment at the end?
Right.
Because that's a big part of this too, to make it work. Not just for the financial end of it, but just getting the goals met.
One thing I don't want to have in there is, what have you done for me lately attitude. You know, you got somebody that's done a great job, continues to do a great job, that, well, you haven't done anything over what you've already done. No, it's that attitude we want to perpetuate. And so when everybody's checking all the boxes and, you know, I mean, they should be able to get the maximum when it comes around.
And although I know this would never happen, but there are instances when this was looked at where the same goal was given year after year and it was always met. And so then it was gaming. And so I just want to be aware that there's a balance in there, should be at some point. Because if you're always meeting it, then why are you looking at it? And they actually had a provision in there where that had to be changed up. I mean, you could do it once, maybe twice, but after that, you've got to be looking at other goals. There's something else that needs to be fixed.
Or the goal is written so simple, like be to work on time. It's like, okay, well, that's a normal thing. That's not really.
It's not a requirement. Yeah, it's a requirement of the job, but it shouldn't be a goal for the year.
Wear clean clothes.
Yeah, use deodorant, I mean, brush your teeth, bring coffee.
Unfortunately, that's the goal of the year for some.
But I thought quarterly reviews were just done on probationary employees.
No,
No, so it's on all employees.
that's correct,
quarterly.
right? They're done quarterly.
That's correct. We changed it to all employees get quarterly evaluations.
If the officers get off some feedback, I think that's a fair thing to do. I think setting someone up to succeed is better than trying to punish them for not. And I don't think it's right to you know, snap a whip and say, well, at the end of the year, you just didn't do ABC, so you're out of luck. And you have no clue. I mean, you maybe have a sense of it, but when you're breaking it into specific goals that are awarded on the basis of the supervisor employee, I think that has to be looked at to manage
Joe?
up.
Mr. Eby?
Well, it seems that underneath all of this is the expectations are listed as far as meeting the criterias. You know, you've got 6 different expectations, or just say benchmarks, goal marks to meet in order to, let's say, qualify. First question would be, do you have to meet all 6 of those? And if those benchmarks right there are actually what you're trying to achieve, then that, in my opinion, is going beyond your job description, going beyond just doing your basic duties. So with that, then I would say just changing the wording to meeting the expectations listed below, because they've been listed.
You're talking about under H1, 2, 3?
Yeah, 1 through 6 there, you know, during the past 12 months, and it gives different examples of actually going past your normal job description, job duties. So those are already listed. I don't think that if somebody's meeting those, then they've already gone beyond.
Comment? Well, I think the whole idea of this is it's a package.
Right.
And I don't think that we can add the language under, if you're talking about D, as below, but I think it all works together.
Mayor, one of the things that I do offer is, as we get to the last part of the resolution, we talked to, if there is clarification, it would be addressed in an admin reg. So, if there's something that's not clear or working, then we would incorporate that into an admin reg on how the process works. And as we change that, we can bring it back and let you know. And it's just like any other policy, as you start to administer it, you run into areas where it's not clear on how it's gonna work, or you run into disputes of an employee's thinking one thing and a supervisor another. So there's determinations that have to be made as we go along.
Okay, do you have anything else, Cheryl?
I have a couple more sections.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and proceed, and you guys be mulling.
Okay, that brings us to 4-4, the end of probation increases. Employees hired after the approval date of this plan will receive a 1% end of probation increase for completion of their initial 12-month probationary period. Employees hired prior to the approval date will receive their 5% end of probation increase, which is what we're currently doing.
Right.
4-4, the COLA. The only verbiage we added in there is that, the COLA shall only be approved after an industry pay evaluation has been completed. And currently, there has to be budget for one to be approved anyway. Village manager has to okay that. But we've added in the verbiage that COLAs will only be given if that occurs and shall only be approved after an industry pay evaluation has been completed.
Mayor, if I may, on that topic there, previously when COLA was given, the whole pay plan would move.
Right.
And what ends up happening is you may have an employee that comes in 12 months before another one, and if you move the whole pay plan, you end up with them being paid the same. And, so it doesn't really recognize that. So what I'm suggesting with this one, if a COLA is given, we do an industry pay plan, some methodology of finding out, what 100% of industry is. And then at that time, the whole plan would move as a COLA. And that, it would be tied to our plan, but it has to be evaluated, and then it also has to be looked at. And I think we wrote that language in there in some relation to the consumer price index.
Yeah.
And so that type of an evaluation should be conducted, and that's the only time that the pay plan should move. It shouldn't move if we haven't studied it.
Exactly, for sustainability purposes.
Yes.
For sure, and we understand the cost of living here is higher than a lot of places, so that gives us the opportunity to pay over 100% of what, so anyway, okay, go ahead, Cheryl.
Okay. It brings us to 4-10, service credit pay. And currently, our employees are receiving 5% increase each 5th consecutive year of service. What we'd like to do for our employees is not have them wait until the 5th consecutive year to receive that, and we'd like to give them a 1% service credit increase each year.
Sure.
It actually, compounding, it actually comes out to a little bit more than them having to wait the 5 years for the 5%. To get to that, in July, we would like to propose that the chart you see below, depending on the years of service the employee has.
Cheryl, Mayor, before we get into that, several of the counselors have referred to one of the attorneys passing, once you give an employee something and you take it away, it becomes a takings, and they got, their laudermill rights and whatnot as public employees. So the way that we're proposing this actually is not a takings, it's just switching it from a 5-year to a 1-year, and it's basically equivalent to the same thing, but the compounding is actually a little bit better for the employee, and it's something that they'll see every year. That's one of the things that we saw with in discussing this with employees, is they're like, well, sometimes we didn't receive anything and we had to wait several years before we got anything. So this approach, they know that they're gonna get something, and then with the step, then they can start planning, and these scales show that 1% going across and then stepping up. But to make that right, there's a one-time adjustment, and that's what Cheryl's going to get into now.
Yeah, so depending on the years of service an employee has, in July, this July, they would receive this percentage of pay. And then, and I'll explain that a little bit better in a minute. And then at their next anniversary and thereafter, they would then receive the 1% each year. So if an employee is 4 years into their 4 years into their 5 years, they would receive 4% in July, and then the following year, they would receive 1%, and so on and so forth.
So it's completed years of service.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. I think that this is, I think this is a win-win. For the village, it allows us to budget easier, knowing that everybody who's been here at least a year is getting a 1%, or in their second year is getting a 1% increase. For the employees, when you first presented this to me, Tim, it's like, yeah, I could see it immediately. Because we have some employees who only make it 3 or 4 years and they don't get anything. So this way, everybody gets 1% a year, and like you said, at the end of 5 years, it's actually 5-point-some% that they end up getting by that time. So this allows that progression. It's not a cost of living, but it does help a little bit towards keeping up with the costs, because we know they don't go up every 5 years. They go up every month sometimes. But I really like this part of it, and I think this is advantageous, and I hope the employees understand that this is really in their favor to do this.
And one more thing I'd like to add, currently fire and police do not qualify for those service credit increases until they max out in their step, and they receive those increases through their advanced training hours. But this would be opened up to fire and police as well. So this would be, that's also a huge win. It would open up that 1% each year to all of our employees, to include fire and police.
So this chart that we're looking at with the 1 to 5%, it's only a one time to just adjust the transition into that, right?
Yes,
That's
sir.
correct.
Yep. And I agree with you, Manager Dodge, that, the principle is the same, but the benefit is a lot better. That's the way I looked at it.
Anything else? Cheryl?
No, sir. That brings us to the pay plan. Tim and
Mayor and council, when we start to look at the police and dispatch, and, especially the police, as we've seen some of the challenges that have been coming their way, and, even in trying to look at the police candidates, there was one candidate that wouldn't even come into New Mexico because of the discussions around qualified immunity that dropped out. And, so just retaining and attracting the officers has been a challenge. And then we've seen the same thing with consolidated dispatch. So when we start to look at their pay plan, and this is a recommendation that came from the officers that had looked at this with me and made recommendations to me, so I'm going to have them present. But in the first 5 years, you see that the percentages escalate a little bit greater for the officers and dispatchers, and a lot of that's going to be tied to some of their training requirements, which are a little bit different than what we have to go through. So that's going to really be the only difference between the employees' pay plan and the regular employee pay plan and the dispatch and police. And then what we've also done is we've taken fire and we put them into the same type of a step plan so that it's consistent across the board. So, Jamie, I don't know who's going to handle the presentation from your group, but okay. So,
thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you.
Jamie, you could present from there if you like. The mic's here for you.
Yeah, you can. Well, can you see him up here? Can the camera see him?
No.
Well, the people can see you on the
Why
camera.
don't you come
here.
present from here, Jamie?
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank council for allowing us to come up here and speak with y'all. Get this closer. Oh, sorry. Okay, so before I get to this, the pay plan, real briefly, I'd like to explain our department. Our department is the premier department in this surrounding area. We are constantly called for service to go assist Ruidoso Downs, BIA, Lincoln County Sheriff's Office, and we're utilized weekly. So, sorry, we're also part of the MCU, Major Crimes Unit. We typically, in our department, our detectives are the ones that lead the MCU, and our detectives are the ones that have the specialized training to sit there and assist all these smaller, or the surrounding agencies, the smaller agencies, so that we can provide them that assistance. Excuse me if I'm not thinking straight, because I've been up over 24 hours.
No, you're fine.
I'm sorry.
Well, this is usually what these guys sound like anyway, so I'm following right along.
You can take your mask off.
So when we do respond to Ruidoso Downs, the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office, it's constantly seeking advice. And the reason they're seeking advice is because our officers are very well trained. And that's what we're seeking through this pay plan, is to recruit and retain. And what we're doing right now is we're losing officers, good officers that want to work for our department. We're losing them to an agency like the Sheriff's Office. And the reason we're doing that is because a maxed out officer that has years of training, years of experience, they max out at a higher rate than what we currently are at right now. So it also makes our officers that are up and coming who have that training, they look to go to the sheriff's office because they know, well, I'm going to be compensated for, the hours that I put in to put myself in a position to where I'll be best suited for that department. So what we're trying to do is be that premier department. I've spoken with officers from different counties that have shown interest in coming to our department, even from the sheriff's office, that are great, that would be an asset to the village of Ruidoso, like right away, because of their years of an experience and training. So the only holdback right there is that we can't match their pay. They would take a dump, a loss in their pay, and it's just, again, I know you guys said it earlier, the village of Ruidoso, it's hard to find residency here with, how expensive it is. So that's another issue that other officers, I spoke with Roswell officers, Alamogordo officers, and they've all expressed interest, but the concern is finding a home in Ruidoso and not being able to afford it. I think this pay plan that we were proposing is going to be very attractive to outside agencies, showing that our department does compensate you for the advanced training that you've put in for. And if you look at the climate out there with law enforcement, what do they routinely say? They routinely say that officers need to be more better trained. Well, that's what our department is. We hold that training for surrounding agencies. We are the ones that hold the biennium. And before I get to this, I would like to recognize Sergeant Minner and Officer Randolph. They did help me out with this pay plan. They're part of the whole process, so I do want to recognize them. But Sergeant Minner is actually in charge of the training that we have excuse me, can I take this off?
Absolutely, I mean,
Trying to breathe.
I've been sitting here this whole time wondering why you still got it on, but that's a personal choice.
Okay. So Sergeant Minner is in charge of our training. And as part of our training officer, he sends and puts out and promotes officers to get this advanced training. And a lot of our officers are putting in for it now that it's kind of easing up to where officers can attend physically to all these different types of training to better, I guess, give our services to the village of Ruidoso. We have to have better trained officers. With our proposal, it's a 5-year officer with 500 hours is a maxed out, would be a maxed out officer here. Why we're looking at the 5-year mark? Because if the sheriff's office is a 10-year, but with 500 hours, okay? But the attraction that they're getting is the older officer who, physically and mentally, I think, is just not what this agency, you got to have a 5-year officer is still out there, willing to assist. They're typically still fit. If they have that 500 hours, then that's an officer that's a go-getter that wants to get out there and, give the best services to the city or village they work for. So that's the officers that we're trying to attract here, is a 5-year officer that has that 500 hours. And that, to me and to us, showed that these are the officers that are going to provide the best services for the village because they are go-getters. Because it is hard to get to 500 hours. It is. It's difficult. Either it could be economically because the agencies just can't send officers to training, or, a lot of it has to do with those officers that they're just, how you were saying it earlier, they show up to work, okay? But we're trying to attract those officers well-trained that can assist the village right away and give and provide the best services. I think you do have it. The other thing I want to stress is like the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office they're either fully staffed or one officer away from being fully staffed. We're down 6 positions. And the reason we're down 6 positions is because they are hiring officers that are well-trained and paying them better. But at the same time, are they well-trained? We are the ones that provide services to them and assist them along on how to handle certain situations. I mean, as far as a crash, we go out there to handle crashes if state police isn't nearby, because they don't handle crashes typically. With the downs, they're new, they're not used to the area, they're constantly getting new officers, but every time we go down there and assist them, we're providing our knowledge to the Ruidoso Downs and outside agencies. So I think the point is we almost lost a couple of good officers this year to the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office just based off that. And so we wanted to propose this, to be attractive out there so we can promote it. I've looked at different agencies where they put, come on here, sign-on bonus. We don't have that as part of website. I think that's something else we need to work on is the website. Just having those treats out there that just, pops out at you saying, hey man, look at our agency. We need to work on that. But as far as let me see. Sorry, flipping through.
And if I may, while Sergeant Irving is looking that up, I think part of the problem that we ran into is when we started looking at the pay that, say, the sheriff's office is paying their deputies, the ones that come in. They have a lower, like Sergeant Irvin said, lower training hours, although they may start at 10 years. Their basic deputies, not supervisors, not anything else, are making more than what some of our corporals are actually making right now. And part of the problem is some of it was pay and some of it was the pay scale that was actually in place prior, that Sergeant Irvin is working on to try and change, because it didn't benefit our officers, although they may promote and get to a supervisory position, because it was hard for them to get to that maxed out level where they had years of training hours. They were actually making less than a deputy with the sheriff's office work. And that's part of what started all of this, because we had officers looking at going to another agency, even though they were supervisors here and had potential to promote further. In the short term, they were looking at, they could make more money going to another agency, and just with the hours of training, years of training hours that they had, so.
Can I ask you a question about the sheriff's department? Because I saw recently they had a job posting, they were looking for deputies. And looking at their pay scale that they advertised, we currently have one officer making less than their low end of the pay scale, but we have 3 officers making at or above. We have one corporal that I'm looking at is making less than the maximum of their pay scale. But their pay scale, is that for when you come to the department, but then you have an opportunity to make more money based on training and other steps and things on top of that?
So on that, if they are making that 2862, okay, they're maxed out. The only, I guess, they're going to get credit or service credit, so or COLA. So that's what they would get to get a raise there. Okay. That's where they top out at. That's where they max out at.
So they don't have the additional positions per se that we do in the police department?
Actually, they do have a sergeant there.
Okay.
And their sergeant makes over a corporal pay. But at the, let's see here. I actually have it right here.
So can they get to that upper level faster than we can? Is that what you're saying?
As the pay scale has been or is right now for the police department, it's such a confusing scale, but it's easier to get to that maxed out level with the sheriff's office than it is for us right now. And I think that's part of what Sergeant Irvin was working on, is changing that pay scale a little bit so it's easier for officers to get not only training hours, but we can attract those officers, 5 to 10 year officers that we want, and we can help boost their training hours. But 500 hours, I mean, we've got also 10 year officers that don't even have 5 years, just barely hit 500 hours of training. And so it takes a while to get there.
Well, I can see that being an issue too, because like you said, we're short 6 officers, or we're 6 positions right now. So when we're short, I know it's happened in the past, is we've offered police officers comp time when you work more than your scheduled amount, but then you can never take the comp time because you're so shorthanded, you can't afford to take the time off. So it's this never-ending vicious cycle where 500 hours, that's 2.5 weeks, big deal. But if you can't take the time away from your regular duties to do your training, then you're operating with one hand tied behind your back.
Absolutely.
So I can see that being a difficulty too.
Yes, sir. And so that
across the country, everybody's having a hard time getting officers. And I know on the municipal league, I sit on one of the committees, and we've been trying to get it through where a retired officer can come back and still work. And just for some reason, para does not understand. Even the proposal was, okay, let them keep working, but they don't collect anything more, but they're still paying into para. My God, you're getting more money into the fund and not having any more liability, and they won't get to that. But we have to do something, because in many, across the country, there's a few, let me put it this way, there's very few bad officers, but they're ruining it for everybody else. And for that reason, a lot of people are thinking twice about getting into law enforcement. And, that's what we need to do, is we need to be more competitive in the market to attract those people here and whatever it takes. Signing bonuses, I've offered signing bonuses. Right now in this job market, it doesn't mean much. Whatever it takes and being creative with it. So, I was just asking about the sheriff's department thing because just looking at numbers, it looks like we're on parity with them, but it's the other behind the scenes stuff that if somebody from the public were looking at this, they go, wait a minute, we're already in that same boat, but it's the to get to that higher pay plan, is more difficult here.
And if I may, those officers that you were looking at that are getting, that are at that level or maybe higher than what the SO shows, those officers have an extensive amount of training hours. Those officers right there have over 1,000 hours of advanced training. That's why they're at. The SO that's topped out there is nowhere near that level of trained officer. That's why he's at where he's at, along with maybe a degree that he has. So those are the ones that we want to attract here, is that level of officer. And I think that's when you're looking at that. That's the only way that would happen right now, or the years of service that he's put in with this department, along with all the advanced training.
And then, I know we need to be competitive wage-wise, but people have to enjoy where they work.
Absolutely.
And I've talked to a lot of officers that it's about their work environment, the camaraderie, all that stuff. So that's why it's so important. I know what Chief Gold's doing and what you guys are working on is we need to have that instilled so that if the pay's close, there's not a question they want to be here.
Yes, sir.
And then with, of course, you need to be able to survive and pay your bills here. But, this is a great place to live, and we just need to make sure that we're paying something that people, not just a living wage, but where families can get ahead. But it has to also be the attitude of the department, how people get along, and all of that thing. And that's something that I want to continue to work real hard on with you guys. Because I don't think money's not the only answer I've talked to people about. It has to do with if they don't like going to work, they don't like the people they work with, or it's stressful, the tension, those are things we want to be working on too. And I hope that with all this stuff that we're talking about right now, that lends some support to the idea that the village is an awesome place to work and that it's a good group to work with, and then that it works in your department over there too. And then we can work on the individual things that we need to in those departments. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yes, sir.
Do y'all agree with that?
I do, and I would like just to add on top of that, just give you a little bit with our department. I mean, the camaraderie that we have now versus several years ago is completely changed. And I would like just, I'm proud of our department where we're at right now. Everybody works together. Everybody's brothers and sisters there. And I've been here since 2007. And I've seen the highs and lows with our department. And just where we're at right now, I can see a complete change in how we interact with each other, how we back each other up. And I think what makes us attractive to those other officers that are wanting to come from different agencies is they see that close brotherhood. And we have sheriff's office that want to hang out with the Ruidoso PD. We have state officers that want to hang out with the Ruidoso PD. And it's constant like, man, I would go over to you because they see that camaraderie. So I just like to express that to the village and let them know that we are making that change and we are moving forward in a better direction.
Could you give us just one example, like a bullet point of something you think has helped perpetuate that change? I mean, and that's to any of you. I haven't seen Randolph's face yet, so I didn't know if he's one of our new guys, and he's a hometown guy, so we're glad to have him get, to participate, and we want to do things like this more often. But, I mean, can you guys give me something that you would say that has helped move that needle in the right direction? Is it policy? Is it personality? Is it Chief Gold? I know I went in there yesterday and I saw, I don't know what y'all were even talking about, but everybody seemed in good spirits and in a good attitude. You know, what is it that you think is changing? Is it consistencies? Is it, I mean,
I think yes, sir. Consistency, you know, not hemming and hawing, making changes and enforcing those changes. We need structure. And we've gotten that throughout these last several months. We've gotten this structure. Everybody knows where we stand. But I think a lot to do with it is just individuals that were keeping other individuals down in the department that have now left. Okay. So I think just those individuals leaving really helped the other officers that were clinging on to that negativity. And now it's more so positive department versus having that, you know, that negative or black cloud just hanging around.
I'll say I'm so glad to hear that at the department, because I know there was a lot of issues going on around there with morale, and to hear that things have really changed a lot. I'm really glad to hear that.
And that's been there for a while.
oh yeah.
It's been there for a while, yeah.
It's sadly, it's been,
Okay.
but this is a great plan after reviewing it all. Y'all did a good job. Very well.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Mayor, if I may, I want to talk a little bit about the dispatch.
Yes.
Part of it as well, and then the fire and what we've done on that part.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you for your
Get
work.
some sleep.
I know.
Don't forget your mask.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you.
Sorry, Kate.
Thanks.
Did you get to go home and go to sleep now?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Now it's
Yeah.
sleep time.
Go get some rest.
You got 6 hours before you have to be on duty.
Mayor, as you look at the pay plan, you know, that it looks at that first 5 years, and that's where the advanced training happens. And you can see the percentages on the bottom on how it escalates. So it's a little bit higher escalating, and it's because of those 500 training hours per level. When we looked at it before, when it was first being proposed, before we added the additional 5 years and the 1%, you know, I highlighted what the police department was actually proposing. There were several officers in the higher part that wouldn't have done anything for. They would have just continued to receive their service credit, as Cheryl talked about before. So we actually added that additional 5 years for some of those officers that are maxed out, and then they can still, their supervisors can meet with them and identify various goals that they want them to focus on. For instance, if we got a sergeant that we want to start moving into a lieutenant position, then we might want to have him attend like a CPO class, so that when he gets into that administrative function, it starts building that capacity and learning how to purchase and make requisitions and whatnot. So it provides opportunity beyond just the advanced training that they would receive as officers. So, you know, I just kind of wanted to show that plan, and then it's consistent with every single department thereafter. When you go to the dispatch, and earlier Cheryl passed out the pay plans that were in place. With the dispatch, we changed it, and there's really not much opportunity for dispatch once they get past the academy. There's a few advanced trainings that they can take. But again, as employees, we want to make sure that we're offering some type of career advancement for them, or something that they can look forward to and say, you know, if I do this, I can improve myself personally and professionally and continue working. So we took the dispatch right now with the pay plan. They're at $15 an hour entry because of the difficulty in achieving or attracting dispatchers. We're recommending that we bump up the base by $2, and then the whole scale moves incrementally the same way. And then again, with their advanced training that they do receive for the first 5 years, it would be stepped up similar to the police department. and then it would go on a 4-year step like everybody else. You know, with these positions, and one of the things that I like that the officers presented is the difficulty when you're trying to attract an officer, and you saw where Cheryl talked about the manager having the discretion to move a person or to hire or bring on a person between the minimum and the mid. That's when it would give us the opportunity to say, this officer that we're trying to attract has 1,000 training hours, and now we can give him credit for that and move him to that part of the scale where we're onboarding him, and that's what makes it attractive to recruit and retain those officers long-term. So that's a tool on why we put that phrase into the resolution, so that does give us that ability. The rest of it, Mayor, it just gets back, Mayor and Council, it just gets consistent with the plan where your first line employees are at 4%, your mid-management goes to 3%, and then your upper management's at 2%. And again, that's to create some equity on your higher paid employees compared to your lower paid employees as you look at the percentages, that you're not creating disparity amongst those different income levels.
Agreed. And the same with the fire department?
Yes, sir. Fire department, when we looked at it, you know, they're a little bit unique in the hours that they work. So there again, they continue to see that 1%, and then they continue to see that step in the percentages like the other departments, which is more valuable. I think it's going to help the fire department retain. We lost a couple of seasoned officers, and it's because they really didn't see any other career opportunity.
What do you think, Chief Thetford? Have you reviewed it?
Come to the mic, please.
Sorry, I know I didn't prepare you.
No, that's all right, Council, thank you. Yeah, working with Manager Dodge and talking with my department, along with the police department, it all falls in line with training, and like a couple of guys we lost, 8, 10, 12-year guys, they just left for money. They just had an opportunity for money with the training hours they had, and just like the 500 hour or, you know, whatever it is. Some of our guys, when they get to 10 years on the old pay plan, they have over 1,000 hours, and there's nowhere to go. And if there's no movement, it's hard to retain that. And then on the other end of it, recruiting new fire guys, yeah, they can come here, they get a lot of training. The pay's not that great, but they do have opportunity for second jobs. But once they get trained up after 2 or 3 years on our dime with the village, then they can go to Roswell, they can go to Carlsbad, Las Cruces. And so it's just a vicious cycle that we just keep training and working with and trying to get them here and keep them here. But it's inevitable that they're going to find opportunity around the state that pays. Well, I can tell you right now, the ones we lost at Carlsbad was about another $25,000 a year for the same amount.
Which is gonna get sucked up in housing.
Yep.
And they're actually still living here.
Oh.
They're traveling. They just
Okay.
go work 40 hours.
That'll get old real quick.
Really old.
I mean, that's, might be a little short-sighted on some people's, you know, but I understand that this would help. Okay. Because I've known people that have talked about leaving to go to work for oil field companies for safety. And yeah, that all looks good until you get a turn down, and then next thing you know, they're not even in the state anymore. So I think this works for everyone. Does anybody else have any questions?
Very good.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes,
it's
Susan?
Susan.
Go ahead, Susan.
Hey, Tim, was Katie brought into this with the consolidated dispatch?
Yes.
Okay. And what about the joint committee? Is that why we're meeting this afternoon?
Mayor, Counselor, the Chief Scott from the Downs called the special meeting, a workshop meeting for the consolidated dispatch to talk about the telemetry for the consolidated dispatch and possibility of the sheriff's office wanting to opt in So that's what it's based on.
Okay.
We had a discussion with the mayor from the Downs, and the pay plan as it's related to consolidated dispatch and the financial impact to the Downs will be placed on their next agenda. And then we're asking Chief Gold to coordinate with Chief Scott to call a special meeting to ask for the concurrence of the consolidated dispatch.
Okay, thank you very much. I was just wondering about that. I appreciate it.
Okay, is there any other discussion, presentations? Okay, somebody want to proffer, make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt Resolution 2021-22, a resolution amending Ordinance 2014-06, Village of Ruidoso Personnel Policy, Chapter 4, Positions and Pay, 4-1, Compensation Policy, 4-2, Pay, 4-3, Merit Increase and One-Time Merit Performance Pay, 4-4, End of Probation Increases, 4-5, Cost of Living Adjustment, otherwise COLA, 4-10, Service Credit Pay, Exhibit A, Police Pay Plan, Exhibit B, Dispatcher Pay Plan, Exhibit C, Fire Pay Plan, and Exhibit D, General Employee Pay Plan.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, second. Any final discussion? Roll call, please, Ron.
Counselor Jackson,
Aye.
Counselor Eby, Counselor Letterman,
Aye.
Counselor Salas,
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius,
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, lady and gentlemen, and everybody that put in on this, appreciate it.
Yes, good
Okay.
job.
Mayor and council, thank you very much.
Next item. Item number 3, discussion and possible action on adoption of Resolution 2021-23, a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2022, July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. Budget for all funds to the local government division of the New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration. Ms. Starkovich, yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, councilors. In front of you is Resolution 2123, which will adopt with our fiscal year 22 budget. And as you know, we will submit this as our preliminary budget. DFA offers you 2 opportunities to submit the budget, a preliminary June 1st, and then your final one June 30th. However, with my experience, I tend to submit this as our preliminary because it's too short of a time frame to make any changes by the time it's due. So what we do for our second submission to DFA is I will submit any cash balances, and this will actually be the budget that we see and start using July 1st. And then if there's any changes that we need to make to it between now and July 1st, I'll include them on our first budget adjustment for the year that will come through after the first quarter in July. So as you see it today is what the departments will be using on July schedules for you to try to make it a little bit easier in going through all the numbers and the figures on a somewhat higher level than what we saw at the last meeting. But that doesn't stop you from asking any questions about any details about any account line items or anything that you might have in question. But for me going forward, as presented, our total budgeted expenditures for the village in total was $41,827,833. Now this amount does not reflect any capital projects that are currently in progress. There is no way to try to project what those ending balances would be as of June 30th. So at this point, they're not included unless it was a brand new project. In July, once we close out the June books, whatever the ending balances are left on capital projects that need to be rolled over will be included in the budget at that time so that we have accurate numbers and a reconciliation into cash. So going forward with all these expenditures, you'll see each individual fund budgeted expenditure amount. However, for the general fund, total personnel, operations, and outlay requests, including debt service, come out to $14,376,880. So if we take a look In one of your packets is a sheet like this, and it says fiscal year 22 final budget. What this spreadsheet is showing you is cash balances as of May 1st for each individual fund. And it takes into consideration the amounts that we budgeted as revenues and expenditures and net transfers to come out with an ending cash balance. Now, according to DFA and statutes, we cannot budget over any beginning cash levels that we have. And what this spreadsheet is representing and showing you all is that we are within our parameters of cash ending balance, and we are not overdrawing any funds, and therefore we're not in violation of any statutes at this point. Does everybody have it? I know we had made some extra copies.
I believe we all have it.
Do you want, Coughlin, do you want my copy? Here.
Yeah, if I could see
Page
it.
number. Or a page number.
I don't have that.
So, as you can see, all the balances are positive. And if you look at the general fund in particular, we're ending at 8.1 million. That actually not only includes the reserve that is required by state statute at 12%, but an additional 12% that the council had enacted by resolution some years ago. So we are more than covered in the general fund. So if there's any questions about a particular fund, and you'll see that capital projects does have a lot of cash, but that is because of the sewer line that is still around 18 million. So as we progress through that capital project, that cash balance will go down. Included also in capital projects is the new court building that we issued debt for. So that 5 million is still sitting in cash until we have the project move forward. So.
Mayor Crawford?
Yes, sir.
Judy, can you talk a little bit about the RJU building and what we propose in that area? Because I think that's one change that we hadn't addressed.
Yes. So can you give me the figure of, it's the water utility fund of the ending cash balance? Oh, no, you know what? I have it right here. Yeah. As we started the process for the RJU building some years ago, we had started with a balance of 500,000. As we progressed and got into the building and we saw, well, 500,000 is not gonna cut it. So we added another 250. So at the beginning of the year, we had started $750,000 reserved for that project. And as Adam started the design, we have spent some of that money, and I believe it's around 200,000 of that money on planning and designing of that building. Well, when we got the engineer's estimate, as you know, it was a lot more than what we had expected. So it's coming in at about $1 million or $1.4 million. So as you can see, we're a little short. So the expected gap that we will need is about $926,000. So at this point, at the end of April, RJU had about $4.2 million in cash balance. If you look at their budgeted requests for 22, they are asking for capital outlay projects of 1.5 million. So as you know, against good budgeting policies, your cash balance should probably be used for one-time expenditures, and your operating revenue should go ahead and fund operating personnel, services, supplies, and stuff. So when we look at this fund, and it's out of budget about 1.9 million, and there are some one-time expenditures in operations such as the rate analysis and stuff. So when you look at it, we're looking at about 1.4 million to be used out of cash to fund the fiscal year 22 budget requests. And when you take it off of 4.2 million, you're still pretty good. I can't do those figures in my head, but I think it's about 2.8, almost $3 million. I don't have my 10 keys, so I can't do nothing. So I'm still very comfortable in taking the remaining balance that we need in that gap funding from cash balance, because as you know, people always use water
consumption's always going up, and as we add more people onto sewer, there's more consumption, more bills going out. We have a standard billing structure that 3,000 gallons is included in the bill, so anybody in the village will always get a minimum bill. Okay, so we know that the cash balance will be continually increasing as the year progresses on. The one point that I think we need to do as far as a good fiscal policy is at some point we need to come and make a recommendation to you all. And this might happen through the rate analysis and some of the master planning, but we need to somehow set some kind of reserve for RJU and all our enterprise funds, similar to the general fund, so that we have some kind of parameters to keep on hand for emergencies or things that happen, disasters, that we always keep on hand. But at this point, I feel very comfortable in funding that building out of cash.
What was the drastic difference in the design of it that changed it so much? Do you know, Adam? So I knew it was going to be over the $500,000. I didn't realize it was going to be 2 counties over.
Mayor, Council, the first thing is the price of metal. You know, when we first started designing this building, we priced a building, just the shell, at $70,000. Well, after the first raise in metal, it went up to almost $200,000. And then there was another increase on top of that. And then we, the increase in just, I mean, everything, all the tangible items for a building. So, and then the engineering on it, on top of that.
So, inflation.
Yes, sir.
That your Fed chairman Yellen says isn't really happening. So that is a perfect example of that.
Unfortunately, it may go up a little more. You should have built it when you wanted to.
Well, I was always, you know, it's gonna be 1 to 1.2 million in my mind. It's just not, by the time you finish it out, it's just not gonna be in it. $500,000 was the deposit.
And we've cut things out of the building just to make that.
Well, just everything right now, when it's related to construction, is really trying to find a contractor, let alone trying to find materials that go up almost weekly. It's kind of crazy.
Mayor, Council, and I just wanted to make sure that we pointed that out. We did discuss this with internal finance as well, as we presented to them, so.
So we will go ahead and move on. Included in your packet was a really colorful sheet, and you've seen this every quarter. This just goes by and takes those individual budgeted fund amounts, and it actually puts it into perspective by department and fund, and it breaks it out by personnel, supplies, services, debt service, and capital outlay, and transfers out. So if you have any questions on that particular spreadsheet, you can go ahead and let me know. If not, I'll go ahead and move on to the next area within the budget. So included in your packet or the handouts that you were given today was a position schedule. And so what this is telling us are the new positions that were actually included in the budget. And does everybody have that copy?
I got the old one.
Do you have one that I can make copies by
Why don't you, there's not that many, why don't you just read them out?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go. There was only really 5 new positions. One of the other positions on the form was a recreation coordinator. The RSVP program actually got a federal grant this year in the amount of like $75,000. So this is the first time we've ever had that grant. So one of the budget items within that grant application was the allocation of some of the senior center managers' salary to that grant. And so we transitioned a portion of Anthony's salary from the general fund into the RSVP grant fund. And as you know, that state grant never fully paid for 100% of the personnel costs. So the village always had to supplement it by subsidizing about $30,000 to that grant in order for it to make whole. So with the addition of these new federal dollars, that situation was not going to happen in this current budget. And with the allocation and transitioning a portion of the salary into the RSVP fund, we were able to free up enough dollars in order to create a recreation coordinator that will be used half part-time in Parks and Rec and then half part-time in the senior center. So it's technically a new person or FTE to the general fund. However, it came through commingling and transferring of monies back and forth. So the other new position within the general fund is a capital project position. As you know, we have several capital projects going on. And as the sewer line gets underway, our capital projects department only has 2 people, and then the purchasing agent, and it is just a ton of work to keep up all the projects, make sure they're in budget, and keep up with all the reporting. So there was a capital position added to that department. The other positions were actually in the airport. We did include an airport manager, a fleet manager, and 2 firefighters. So when we did add those positions and some of the additional operating costs of the airport, there was a need for the general fund to subsidize that fund. And currently right now, in order to keep the airport fund up and running and to have a net zero balance, the general fund did have to kick in $297,000 worth of subsidy to keep that budget going forward. So that is actually something new in this 22 budget.
Can you repeat that again on the positions for the airport? Airport manager, fleet manager, and
2 firefighters.
2 firefighters.
Well, but the manager on what you sent me just says it's vacant, that it's not a new position. It was just something that had been said vacant.
Mayor, Counselor, I think she's calling it a new position because we had froze it last year. That's one of those ones we didn't refund last year.
Okay. I don't consider it new, so.
Yeah, just.
But what is a fleet manager for the airport?
It is like a mechanic that will service their equipment, and Cody can talk to this, but we've had some discussions. They have a lot of equipment out there, some high dollar equipment, so each time you need to get it serviced, you're paying traveling costs from Albuquerque, El Paso, and then they'll come check it out, and then they'll drive back, and then make the order, and then come back again, so we're getting charged quite a few times. He feels that if we had somebody on staff that could maintain those vehicles, we would save not only those maintenance costs, but it would probably be a position that we could probably use around and use with other departments that actually have similar types of big equipment, who are also paying travel time and mileage coming out, so.
Counselor, just to speak on that with Judy, so it's not only going to be for the airport, but also about the fire department and also the police department with maintenance, but like she said, some of the stuff that we're seeing and doing with ARC vehicles, the aviation, fuel farm, we're paying out tens of thousands of dollars in each department just for travel and or transport. I'd rather have a transport to cruise to Albuquerque, drive in from Arizona, El Paso, California, one trip for our fuel farm for filters and to check our sensor systems, $5,000. Just for one invoice to get here for windshield time, parts, labor, and then come back and fix it. They'll be available during emergencies, snowstorms, heavy equipment, mechanics and operators that will, as a whole, can help any department in the village. And we have a full pit and bay and everything out at the airport that we'll be able to work in-house, save money on labor, save money on parts when we're not paying the 30, 40, 100% markup on parts that we're getting that we can get in town. So we'll be spending that money in town with our own vendors, our own individuals that live here. So the $100,000 roughly that we spend a year trying to farm that out, we'll be able to keep that in-house and have them 7 days a week.
So it's more a mechanic rather than a manager. because they're not managing people.
They're gonna manage the fleet, they're gonna manage hundreds of pieces of equipment and facilities across departments.
But they're gonna have hands-on fixing things too?
Yes.
Okay, so,
They're gonna be diagnosing, repairing, fixing, managing, helping with the budget and repairs and keeping track of all of our, VIN numbers, if you will, on our.
right. So when we talk about managers in other departments, managers typically managing people, this is managing equipment, but,
Right.
but like I said, it's more a mechanic managing the fleet.
Sure, but we're gonna ask them to do a lot more than just change the oil and things, they're
Right.
gonna manage the fleet maintenance on.
Now, I know that solid waste has mechanics over
Yes.
there. Is this something that could tie together because you're gonna have heavy equipment mechanics over there?
Yes, and we've tried to utilize them a little bit with Lonnie and Jerry, but they're so busy that we can rarely get them to help us and or use their facility, just because we have something every day between fire, airport, snow, whatever it is, it's always something. There's not enough time.
Right now, I believe solid waste is looking for a mechanic.
Right, right.
It went vacant.
And a lot of it with us is you have to be emergency vehicle technician and EVT, because there's some equipment that not just any mechanic can work on, they don't allow.
Right.
And that's some of the costs.
I just saw the title and it was kind of a little confusing to me, but it's something that I know over the years is every department's taken a vehicle somewhere different for repairs or whatever, and to be able to bring everything back together, it just makes a lot of sense.
And just future reference, it's not been brought up now, but something that I've thought about moving forward with the airport is, you know, we're one of the only airports in the state that doesn't help pilots with maintenance or oils or fuels, charging. There's lots of things, small industry repair that is something that can bring in money, provides another service to our customers, and just broadens our base. And if we can get this started, that's something we can look at next year. So.
Well, then they've got to have power plant license and airframe if you're going to get involved in that too.
Mayor, if I may,
Yes, sir.
when we look at those two firefighter positions that we're adding, those are actually to help with the airport as well. And, you know, during our strategic planning, we talked about, you know, moving towards establishing a fire department out there as well, or a station. And, you know, this doesn't totally get us there, but it gets us moving in that direction. And then adding the staffing, you know, when we would need the additional help out at the airport for the 24-hour coverage as well. So, you know, it's not the full package, but we're moving in that direction. Chief?
Yeah, and just to speak on that, this does, again, not get us there, but it gives us opportunity, and working with Judy and Manager Dodge, once we make this move to work with the State Fire Marshal's office, and even aviation is gonna open us up for more operating funds a year that we'll be able to use at the airport that we haven't been able to use through the ISO and our number 2, and that's gonna help staffing, training, our stations, which overall is gonna help us to the goals that we worked on from moving to a number 2 to a number 1. And if we get to a number 1, again, the credits and insurance and things with wildland and our response is gonna better every part of that with this move.
Okay. Judy, can you, where is the marketing tourism position at?
It's currently, Mayor, councilors, it's currently funded in the convention center as a manager position in Department 391. And since that was a similar position from the prior year, it's not included as a new one. We're just actually gonna fill it because it was vacant in the current budget year.
Okay.
Okay.
And then we'll fund it as we,
Yes,
I mean, if we addition,
yes, so included in the personnel amount are all the payoffs for the service credits that you just approved, the additional 1% on an anniversary, and any other changes to individual profiles for the dispatch. If the police or fire individual pay rates, we're gonna change July 1st. I didn't take that into consideration. However, I do have enough lack or slack within the budgeted amounts that if those changes are up or down, we will be fined. Also included in the reserve in purchasing, in personnel are the retirements and the performance, pay for performance increases, the 4, 3, and 2. They are actually included in reserve, but they're still included in the personnel figures of all the funds. Now, there is some leeway within that figure because I have budgeted those performance increases at the beginning of July. However, we know that most employees won't be able to attain that increase because the goals haven't even been set or anything like that. So there's a little bit of leeway for any of those individual pay rate changes that might occur throughout the year because of that time lag between the attainment of the goals by each individual employee. So I feel very confident that any changes that were approved through police and fire will be more than enough funds in personnel to absorb those changes.
Well, I just learned something. If I ever need any more money from Judy, you got to use this. Leeway.
Leeway, yeah.
Judy, kind of get some.
So the convention center supervisor would be over the convention center and marketing? Is that what I'm reading?
Well, it's going to be, I didn't know it was going to be, I know it's still going to be under Parks and Rec, but that they would be coordinating and working here at the convention center, but also doing tourism and marketing.
And we can, at this point for this budget, it is just in that department. We can move it wherever it needs to be. We can call it something else, but just in order for a place card
Figure
for
it
me,
in, a whole lot.
that's where it was the easiest position.
That's the idea, more of a convention center type position that they have in other communities. It's about title, that they do tourism, they do marketing, those kind of things. That's the individual that we're looking for.
Right, I'm just looking here and there's only 3 positions listed. There's an office manager, technician, and then convention center supervisor. So that's the position you're talking about, is the supervisor?
Yes.
Or is there something else not listed on here?
It's the supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
We just haven't got the title. She's just a place marker. is what
Okay.
she said,
Yeah, okay.
for some monies.
You have an office manager, but then you have a convention center supervisor. It just seems kind of like backwards.
And it could be a typo on that schedule.
Yeah, okay.
I just know I have enough bodies in the convention center and enough dollars to cover it whenever we need
Yeah,
to.
this is the number of seats.
Yes, there you go.
Okay, got it.
So, another aspect that's included in the budget is a 4.47% increase in health insurance. All our vacancies are still open and they're fully budgeted, as if we were gonna hire July 1st. We know we won't fill all our vacancies July 1st, so there's a little bit of the leeway there too. And any vacant position is budgeted with full benefits at the highest tiered, highest cost level. So we know at some point, not everybody's gonna take family level, so. In a nutshell, that is what personnel is. If you have any questions, I'll take them right now.
I do have one question on the new position for the recreation coordinator. Is this an additional? Because I believe
Yes.
we've already have a recreation coordinator, correct? So-
Yeah, this is just an
So there'll
addition.
be 2
And it'll be split part-time between Parks and Rec and the senior center.
and the senior center, okay.
So you said we're getting that federal grant for the
RSVP.
yeah, that one. So is that a 1-year grant? Or is that a multi-year grant?
It's a 1-year grant, but he can apply each year for it. And he feels very confident that it will be an ongoing one. But in the job descriptions of the new person that's hired for RSVP, it does say that if the grant goes away, the position will go away, but that she has first opportunity at any other vacancies within the village. And at that time, if that grant goes away, then that position will have to be massaged back into, Anthony's portion will have to be massaged back in to the general fund, and then a decision will have to be made on this position, whether we're gonna carry it or it'll go away.
Yeah. Okay.
Currently, that's Amber.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. In my budgeting, I don't take grant dollars and then take your ongoing expenses and apply it towards that. You know, I would rather see Anthony's money left where it's at, and I know you're doing it to balance some stuff around, but that's, if we don't get that next year, and grants, you never know, then we've got to go ahead and redo it all again.
Well, how else would she do it? If it's a grant coming in, you have to show it being applied.
Apply it to whatever I don't know what.
Well, that's what it's for.
He didn't have enough in operations, and even with the paying of the new stipends and stuff, there was still an excess money. So that's why he was applying it to personnel.
Mayor, Counselor, I think the point you're making, if I get it, is that, we don't want to incentive or disincentivize departments to go out and get grants and then they lose their general fund dollars. And so, we're not, because Anthony, it's basically about $30,000 that he ended up extra with. He didn't have enough to hire a full-time employee. So we're partnering with Rodney to hire a full-time employee, then they're going to share that. So they're moving the money out to fund that position, but he's really being given those same resources. So it's not taking away from him. Those resources will still be working with him.
We're using some of the funding of the grant to pay for Anthony's salary, right? Did I catch that?
Or that it would, that's what they're applying it to. But if that grant goes away, then the coordinator position is the one that goes away. And the person that's hired for that understands that.
Okay.
And we would, we're not trying to temporarily create a FTE and then the grant goes away and we have to FTE to pay for it.
I just wanted to make sure we're not doing like the state does, using severance tax for ongoing expenses, so.
Right.
No.
In para, you got all that figured in, I know.
So this first year, mayor and councilors, we did have a meeting with para to go over the new SB 72 or 90, whatever it was. And at this first year, because our cops, and this will change maybe if the new police chief changes scheduling, because we heard that in the interviews. Any public safety department that has scheduled overtime is now eligible for para. So we do have to make a change in our system in order to allocate that. And it is actually taken into consideration this year. So it moves firefighter annual salaries from, we used to budget 2080 because the overtime wasn't included in para, to 2,756, because you'll have to help me on this. Every other paycheck, they are scheduled 14 hours of overtime. So that big difference is what the overtime now that will be paid into para. Also, unfortunately for our firefighters, on the employee side of para, the contributions, they did go up 0.5%.
Yeah, and that was state, wasn't it? Was that the one the state mandated because of the
Yes.
shortage in?
Yeah, because they can't keep their balances.
You saw the raises and bonuses they gave to employees through COVID, so, there you go.
So the village didn't have any increase on para according to that, but next year we will have one. It'll be increased both on the employee side and employer side.
So it's not all about hourly, it's about benefits, para, it's all those things that we've been trying to maintain.
Mayor Crawford, councilors, one of the things that we did learn this past week is that there is a community that opted out of para and they're offering their employees a 401k. And it's because of, all these restrictions and everything that's occurred. So I just wanted to bring that up because some people are getting kind of creative on the way they're handling it, just because the way para's, not letting people come back to work and just all the other.
Who is that community?
Lovington.
That's interesting. I can see it being some big advantage. I thought we were stuck in mandatory into para.
That's what I thought too.
That's something
State mandated.
I think that's something to investigate, to be honest with me. I mean, if I were an employee, the restrictions on para, having a 401k gives you a lot more flexibility.
Okay, anything else, Judy?
No, we'll move ahead.
Okay, move ahead.
The next schedule that's included in your packet is the capital outlay schedule. It's just a listing of all the capital outlay. We did not cut any capital outlay this year. It's all included in the enclosed budget. And the only thing that was added to the list that you did not see was the 35 light poles in Midtown. I got two costs from Rodney. One was at $349,000 and another amount, depending on which plan or type of light pole you go with, could even be $285,000. So at some point, council will have to make a choice on which way they're going. But for budgeted purposes, I did include the higher amount.
And Mayor and Council, just on that, it's fluted compared to non-fluted, you know,
Just the aesthetics, looks.
Yes.
So remind me, we own those light poles, they're not P&M or the state?
We own them.
We own them,
The ones with the wooden
the ones with the wood.
cedar around them or whatever that is.
They're both decorative light poles. One's just straight and the other one's, you know, fluted.
Is it all the shorter ones, or does it have the two lights on it?
I believe they just have one light on them. And it's a decorative lamp.
And the hot mix warmer box
Yes.
that y'all had heard about in preliminary, we are actually purchasing it in the current year. We've already transferred the money and they're actually getting the requisition in. So depending on the time lag between ordering and delivery, we probably won't get it until the next year, right?
Mayor, Council, they said 150 to 190 days.
Wow.
So we'll just roll over those funds. The only new projects are in SGRT, the drainage and Eagle Creek Phase 3. And the other projects are also in RJU. And then we do have the fine screen interest works at the treatment plant. And as you know, we're gonna be dividing that between 15% with the city of Ruidoso Downs. So the city of Ruidoso Downs' portion is about $300,000. So they do pay each month, in addition to the general operating expenditures of the treatment plant, they do pay a 15% of a 15. So I went ahead and calculated it at the end of April, and they have about $150,000 that they could use towards their share of that Fine Screen Works project. So I think we're covered. But if not, if you have any other questions.
Mayor, one of the projects that we had talked about that we got numbers in yesterday on was the Center Street project. And that was to you know, put new sidewalk and on the west end of the Center Street all the way up to Wingfield, and then realign it and then fix the sidewalks on the east side. There's a little house that's connected to that one building that has the drainage going right onto the sidewalks. That would also be removed as part of that. And when you actually look at that street, you know, it kind of like turns, and, you know, so this would also correct the alignment of Center Street. And it was right for about, I believe it was 200,000.
We got that yesterday, I think.
Yes. And that's not in this, but that's information that, you know, Rodney did provide to us yesterday that he had been working on.
Do we have anything?
So,
Go ahead.
if you all approve it, what we could do is include it in the budget currently in 21 and then just roll over the money if we get it.
Mayor,
Yes, sir. Go ahead, John.
in JUB yesterday, if we do the solar
Screen.
stuff,
Oh, solar.
the engineer was saying that we might be able to roll this fine screen into that 0.9% loan.
Okay.
So he was calling it free money, but.
Yeah. Yeah, he did call as close to free as you can get, so.
Yeah.
And so we've gone out to get an estimate on all of that, so that'll be forthcoming, but for now, we can keep it in here, so.
Yeah, it needs to be in here now.
But you're exactly right. So the stropper is under proposed, under 207, and then you put it back in 216 in streets. So Is that the same stripper?
Yes.
Okay. Same price and everything, I get
Yeah.
that. And it balances out at the bottom, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
And so where is, I've been looking, I'm trying to remember the realignment on Eagle. You know, we're talking about Rio and all that, and,
Mayor, that's being handled by Main Street. Ron and I tried to reach out to Matt, and we haven't been able to get a hold of him the last couple of weeks, so we'll continue trying to find it out, but that was a project that was being led by the Main Street organization.
yeah.
And all they had was conceptual dollars as a consultation through the New Mexico Main Street program. There's no design or anything of that nature other than a conceptual.
So that's where.
Mayor, the other thing that, Ron and Samantha have been working on is some of the state monies that are available for roads. And we're proposing a partnership with the county on Gavilan.
Gavilan Canyon.
Ron, you want to talk a little bit about that? We took all the water out of here, so my throat's getting.
Yeah.
Mayor Crawford, members of the council, the three streets proposed on this grant application is Gavilan Canyon, Paradise, and Warrior Drive. Total project funding that the application on B4 is $3.5 million. It's a 5% match. Our portion would be $100,000. The county would be $75,000. Their county commission has already authorized Ira, the county manager, for their portion already. So we have received a letter. We'll be taking a resolution to the June meeting for the resolution for the full amount, but we'll do a memorandum of agreement also on this project. So, be using a heat scarification process for those three roadways. In total, 9.3 miles, Samantha, is what we're proposing. And we'll have some hearings coming up tomorrow and possibly next week over the funding application. So, and they've all been submitted. Samantha's already submitted everything to the district.
And that's the complete road, not just the shoulders.
It'll be the full width of the roadway using the heater scarification process. There'll be striping, and we'll do the manhole lids, and all of that's included on there. Also raising the lids and all.
The big portion is the shoulder in some areas that drops off, 8 inches, sometimes even more. And those are in the county, so.
Yeah, Mayor, there are some areas that we will work with the county to improve the shoulders with some of the material that isn't reclaimed.
Okay, and I know, what is this heat scarification you're talking about?
It's a Cutler process. Cutler's has done some projects here within the village in the past.
Cutler is a company?
Yes, Cutler repaving, yes, and they're on the state price agreement.
Mayor, what it is, it's a pretty much a big train where they go through and they, he talks about the scarification. It's actually going and milling up the road.
Yes.
They do probably about a 2-inch
Like they're doing over here on Sunday.
similar to that, but instead of, over here, what they do is they come through, they mill the material. This machine takes the material and it recycles it back in with a rejuvenating mix, and then you add blacktop to it and it lays it back down at the same time. So it's all one process as it goes through. It's pretty neat. I've used it in the past, and it just it gives you a good 15 years onto your roadways, and it doesn't get down into the subgrade. So it's a pretty good project.
But
I
in
think
the
they used
process,
it here before.
they'll fix the shoulders.
Yes, and then you can add some areas where the shoulders, like we talked about, but it's a good process. It's about a third less than trying to use any other type of process to fix your roads.
So we did that a couple of years ago on the road going out to Carrizozo. It's a long train. It's very fast compared to traditional methods. And it's just like dig it up, lay it back down.
They did it over by the golf course several years ago.
Yeah. So it's really good. I didn't realize that it actually adds depth to it, so that we'd have to raise the manhole. I thought it pretty much takes it up and lays the same amount back down.
Yeah, we'll have to do the adjustments to the manhole lids and rings.
Okay, thank you.
So just a side note, we did get our GRT for May and it came in at 1.3 million. So right now we're only 2% down from last year with 1 month to go. And last year, the June distribution was 785,000 and we know, well, we're gonna be over $1 million. So we will probably have about a 1% growth rate in GRT over last year.
Okay, so that May disbursement that you're talking about is about 300,000 over
Over prior years.
prior years.
Yeah, and that was just for, that would be for March sales.
Right. So looking pretty bueno.
Yes. Muy bueno.
Right, right on.
Lodger's tax, we should hit the 2 million.
Yeah. So we've done very well, so
Yes.
very fortunate. So good planning on y'all's part, for sure. Eddie, I remember when we
That's right.
did the budget adjustments and
Approach, yeah, paid off.
What was it, 40% decrease, I think we deduction for? So,
anyway, I think we've fared very well,
Yes.
even though we've never been here before. I think it's worked out well.
Yeah, and you can see in the general fund any cash balance, 8 million, so that's pretty good. So, with those, last little excerpts, I stand for any questions. If you want to look at individual line items, we can. If not, if I could get a motion on the resolution.
Judy, I have one question, and I apologize for not being here for the budget summary, the workshop that we did. I'm looking at the radio station, and it's showing a deficit of $36,910. Where's the revenue coming for that? Because I couldn't see it in the revenue side.
So, if you look at this colorful page, the colorful one, the radio station right now, if you look at their budgeted revenues, because we don't have we only have 1 year under our belt, we're only budgeting $5,000 in revenue sales. So the rest of the revenue to balance that budget is coming in from a subsidiary from the general fund, and that amount is $120,000 this year. As you recall, when we did acquire the radio station, we did put seed money into the fund of $150,000. And now this year, in order to get the budget balance, we were gonna have to put in additional $120,000 from the general fund. However, we've been talking about, maybe that subsidy can come from lodger's tax in the future, to pull off the strain from the general fund, but,
Then once we get moved and whatever, then we'll start a program on commercials, ad packages, things of that nature, so.
So is that how we plan to cover that deficit of almost 37,000
Yes, eventually.
eventually?
Your shows.
Unless you got a grant you're working on for me.
You just need to be more popular on.
Yeah, I need to be more for it. Instead of Judy standing for questions, she could dance for questions. And
I need some Zumba music.
And I'll have to, we're working on all of that, but, with the moving and the
Well, I know
construction.
sometimes when you have really popular personalities, it just brings in the money,
Yeah.
but.
I know, we got to work on that. We got to find those right people. But the good news is today that we should be able to start moving into that building as soon as P&M, which is supposed to be.
Yes, Mayor, we are getting the certificate of occupancy. It should be issued today. And then Jeffrey has the plan moved from Precision and happening, I believe, on Friday, Jeff?
Yes, sir.
And then we'll.
Start moving.
Yeah, then we'll be drinking coffee across from the.
Have a big ribbon cutting and celebrating. And speaking of celebration, I don't know if everybody realizes this is the Flying J's 40th year. So being in business, so y'all need to congratulate them on that. So go ahead, Judy.
That's all I had. If there's any other questions, if not, I'll.
Any other questions, Councilor Coughlin?
No.
Do you rest?
I rest.
Okay,
I heard a lot about the budget, I appreciate hearing from various people about the budget. Like I said, I wasn't able to be here, but you guys had a lot of good questions, what I heard, and some good interactions.
Jim, you were missed.
Well, that's where I got my black eye, so I would have rather been
Oh, well.
here. So.
Okay, so.
Mayor.
Yes, Susan?
Just for clarification, the sidewalks on Center Street is included in this, right? That 200,000?
No, it's not. We just got a bid, estimated price on it yesterday, Friday at $200,000. So no, it's not in this one.
Okay.
So that will have to be
But-
addressed. Go ahead, Judy.
So what we can do is we can actually allocate the monies in fiscal year 21 as a project, and that'll go into the budget. You'll see it come back to you at the end of the year budget adjustment, and then we'll just roll the funds over.
Okay.
Savi?
So is that
So is that what we're going to do?
Yes, that's what the plan is. That's the next item
Okay.
on the list.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm shorthand. I'm short
You're
paper
fishing.
here.
Yeah, we know. No, you're fine. It's just that this was kind of looked at, just with the way things were going with the sidewalks. And, it's a never-ending story, and so we'd all looked at that in the past. And so Rodney was able to get a company to give us a bid, and we received it yesterday. So as things are completed, then we'll look at what it's going to take to make that move too.
Okay.
Anything else?
I just wanted to thank Judy for doing this a lot.
Yes.
I don't mean that tongue in cheek either. The way she balances these facts and figures, you could pull her in the hallway and ask her about a specific area, and she would be point on. And that's a tremendous responsibility, and I think it goes without saying that it's very much appreciated, you and your staff.
It's my pleasure. I love numbers.
Okay, so motion, please.
Mr. Mayor?
I was waiting on Mr. Chatty Cathy over here, and he's just staring
I was
into the abyss.
starting to shut stuff down on my computer.
Oh, well,
Okay, so-
with that lead in,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt Resolution 2021-23, a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2022, July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022, budget for all funds to the local government division of the New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration.
Second, if that pleases you.
It does. Any last discussion, please? Okay, roll call, please, Mr. Senna.
Counselor Jackson?
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin?
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius?
Aye.
Counselor Salas?
Aye.
Counselor Letterman?
Aye.
Counselor Eby?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for attending and sitting through the show. We appreciate the council, as always, for doing all the homework, because even with all the time we put in today, there was much more behind the scenes. And I know Tim, he's all ready to go on vacation, so there's no further business. This meeting is adjourned. Good job, Mayor. Good job, guys. Ron, I'm going to take this with me. I've got some paperwork to do at my office, and I'll just
Call me whenever
slide
if I
this
need to
in.
meet you or whatever.
And then our